Hello racing fans, welcome to part 2 of episode 23 of the big Group 1 racing show. This is for the racing season of 2016/17. Now in part 2 of episode 23, I'll preview the final 2 Group 1s taking place at Royal Randwick as part of day 1 of the championships, and they are the TJ Smith Stakes and the Doncaster Mile. 2 massive races, both with massive fields. So let's not muck around, let's get straight into previewing the TJ Smith Stakes and the Doncaster Mile. So let's firstly take a look at the Darley TJ Smith Stakes. This race is ran over the 1200 metre distance at Royal Randwick on Saturday. The horses will jump from the barrier at 4:30 PM. You can watch all the action from day 1 of the championships on 7 and also Sky Racing 1. Russian Revolution is the current favourite at $5.50. Not a strong favourite, but favourite at least. Chautauqua is the next best at $6. Astern is at $7. Spieth at $11. Malagara is at $13. We then have English at $14. At $17, Fell Swoop and Voodoo Lad. At $26, Terra Vista. Japanese Me is at $31. $34 is Tavachi. Rock Magic at a surprising $41. I think that's quite long odds for a horse that I actually give a bit of a chance in this race. Rebel Dane is at $51. At $91 we have Derrin, and then Target in Sight is last of all at $151. So that is the field for the odds for the TJ Smith Stakes for this Saturday. Now let's have a look at the field in depth. We start with number 1, the legend, and that is Chautauqua, Michael Wayne and John Hawkes trained horse. Tommy Berry stays aboard, and it's coming out of barrier 11. Finished to the line strongly in its last run in the Group 1 G.O. Rider to claim 3rd. Of course, it was outclassed by Winks and also Lee Romaine that day. You might remember in my G.O. Rider preview that I actually tipped Lee Romaine to finish 2nd to Chautauqua 3rd, and I was rightly correct. It won this race last year, we can't forget that, and it was actually from the same barrier, so it's coming out of barrier 11 in this race, and it's coming out of barrier 11, it came out of barrier 11 in its last run of the TJ Smith Stakes, so what a coincidence. And look, you've definitely got to put it in your top 3, it's definitely going to be there, and it might be hard to beat, of course, one of the main chances. As always, it's a legend male. Number 2 is a name that I just can't seem to get right when I say it, and that is Malaguera. It is a Peter Gakotis trained horse. Barrier 7 is its barrier, and Ben Melham stays aboard. 6 in its last race, which was the Group 1 All Stakes at Caulfield. Hasn't run since then. Of course, it actually was, well, it didn't go in the favourite that day, but it was one of the favourites to win that race, and it only comes 6 out of the 12 horse field. It's had a 47-day freshen up since then. It did win the Darley Classic last year over this trip. Hasn't won at Royal Randwick, but we know it can produce, and you can't write it off, I don't think. Number 3 is Terra Vista. This horse is a Joseph Pride trained horse. It's coming out of barrier 12. Corey Brown stays aboard. Had never finished outside the top 3 at Flemington until the Group 1 Newmarket in its last start, when it could only come 12th. 6 in this race last year, hasn't won over the 1200 metres since the Group 2 premiere in 2015 at Randwick. It could be its day to win, of course. It won the Lightning not long ago. You can't rule out, however. Number 4 is Rebel 15, a disappointing ninth in the Group 1 William Reid, considering that it won the Manikato last year, last prep. It was quite disappointing in the William Reid, I thought. Has a good heavy record at Randwick and can win over the 1200 metres. You can't write off, of course, this horse is a Gary Patelli trained horse. It's coming out of barrier 15, which some people might question that could be a little bit wide. In fact, it is the widest barrier, so he will have to work quite hard in the early stages of the race. Craig Williams is aboard, comes on. Number 5, Japanise Me. This horse is a Chris Waller trained horse. Glenn Schofield keeps the ride. It's coming out of barrier 5. Fifth last start in the William Reid at Moonee Valley at Group 1 level. Won around this time last year over the 1200 metres at Randwick. It wasn't this race, but it was around this time, maybe nearly less than a year ago now, but nearly a year ago. So, look, I think it's a possible roughie. It could get up. You can't really rule it out. However, its form isn't best on a heavy track, so that's the little bit of a concern, because at the moment the track has been, I believe, upgraded to a heavy track from its soft, which it was at yesterday. Number 6 is Fell Swoop. This horse is a Matthew Dale trained horse. Joey Moreira comes aboard and it's coming out of barrier 6. Last 2 starts have involved this horse coming 6th and finishing well late. Third in the Darley last year. Last prep and last year as well over the 1200 metre distance. Hasn't won over this 1200 metre trip since April at Dubberton, so nearly a year ago now. Has the ability to surprise, I reckon. Hasn't won on a heavy track, however. Number 7 is Spieth. This horse is a Bryce Hayes trained horse. It's coming out of barrier 13. Huey Bowman stays aboard. And it's finished 9th in the Group 1 Newmarket last start. Can win over the 1200 metres. No heavy form, however, but a good, strong finishing horse that you shouldn't rule out. Of course, in its run in the Newmarket, it wasn't in fact its best, but coming over to Sydney for a new race, you can't rule it out. Number 8 is Voodoo Lad. This horse is a Darren Weir trained horse. Damien Lane stays aboard. It's coming out of barrier 3. Second in the Group 1 Newmarket last start in what was a very strong finish from this horse. Third over the 1400 metres at Royal Randwick in its one and only run there, which was a couple of years ago in 2015. Heavy form is quite good, so that is a really good thing to hear if it's going to be a heavy track on Saturday. I reckon it's one of the chances. Number 9 is Rock Magic. This horse is a Chris Hemi trained horse. Barrier 8 is its barrier, and Jared Noski stays aboard. First trip away from WA to Moonee Valley, where it had a strong 300 metre finish in the Group 1 William Reid. Has good form in its last 11 runs. First trip to Sydney, it must be said. No heavy form, which is a little bit of a question mark and a little bit of a query. And in fact, maybe in some ways a little bit of a risk as well. But if it can handle it, then it should be right up there, I reckon. This horse, I reckon, is a very talented WA horse. Number 10 is Target in Sight. This horse is a Joseph Pride trained horse. Brendan Adela stays aboard. It's coming out of barrier 2. Won in the Gold Coast over 1200 metres in the Sprint. Hasn't got the best heavy form or the Randwick form, it's fair to say. Has the win range though, but a much tougher race than its previous. Number 11 is Tavachi. This horse is a Michael Maroney trained horse. It's coming out of barrier 9, and Damien Oliver comes on 6 in the Group 1 Newmarket. Held up, but managed to charge home. First run in Sydney, however, and no heavy form. Number 12 is a 4-year-old female mare in English. This horse is a Gay Waterhouse and Adrian Bott trained horse. It's coming out of the inside barrier 1. Blake Shin stays on. Didn't handle the conditions in the Galaxy last start, finished 7th and definitely capable of much better. 1-2 starts back at Randwick from barrier 1 over the 1000 metres. Third in this race last year. I reckon it could be in this. Number 13, a 3-year-old bay colt, and that is Astern. This horse is a John O'Shea trained horse, and James Doyle takes the ride back from Brenton of Della. This horse is coming out of barrier 4, didn't finish outside the top 2 last prep, has no heavy form however, which is a little bit of a query. It's also its resuming run, although I do think it's in this. It has the capability of being up there in the finish. Number 14 is Russian Revolution. This horse is a Peter and Paul Snowden trained horse. Kieran McAvoy stays on, and it's coming out of barrier 10. 4th in the Coolmore over 1,200 metres last prep at Flemington. Nice return last start, running home strongly on a heavy track at Rosehill Gardens in the Galaxy. It won that race. It's won 5 of its last 6 runs, and it is undefeated in Sydney from 5 starts. I think that is incredible, and that is why it's the favourite by 50 cents at the moment. This horse is an incredible horse, and I find it very hard to see this horse losing. It is going to be right up there in the finish, possibly winning this race. Number 15, Darren. This horse is a David B. Hayes and T. Dabney trained horse. Barrier 14, a little wide, but that's the barrier it's coming out of. Regan Bayliss is aboard. Won its last start, which was a race at Rosehill Gardens over the 1,200 metres. Hasn't got great Group 1 form, however. Just to go back to its Coolmore stud performance, it came 7th out of the 8-horse field. I think I'm prepared to pass on this horse. I can't really see it performing that well. Okay, time now for my tips for the TJ Smith Stakes. Really looking forward to this race. It's a field of 15, and there is some marvellous horses in this race. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going Chautauqua because, well, that horse, it finishes very strongly down the straight, and of course, with barrier 11, it's going to have a bit more of an advantage than what it was coming out of in its last run in barrier 1. Just doesn't seem to do very well in barrier 1. I'm going to go against it though. I kind of went against it in the Geo Rider when I tipped Lee Romain second, and it paid off in the end. But I'm going to go Russian Revolution. I really like this horse. I tipped it to win the Galaxy, and it did just that, and I'm going to stick with it because I think this horse in Sydney is a real jet of a horse, and I cannot go past it. Undefeated in Sydney. This trip suits. It should be very fast down the straight. It may ride it out with Chautauqua down the straights to see who's faster. I think Russian Revolution will win the TJ Smith Stakes for 2017. So looking forward to this race, and I'm tipping Russian Revolution as first. Second, I've tipped Chautauqua. You can't not put Chautauqua in your top 3. It hasn't been running badly. It just was outclassed last start by Winks, who we know is a class mare, and then of course Lee Romain, who is running in the Doncaster Mile, which is the race I'm previewing very shortly, and that's a very good horse, that one. So, but look, it should be very poised to be there at the finish, and that's why I'm tipping it as my second placed horse. I've gone Spieth as my third placed horse. This horse, normally a strong finisher, didn't quite show that in the Group 1 Newmarket. It was quite disappointing actually. A lot of people were tipping it to win, and it kind of failed there. Doesn't have heavy form, that's the only risk, but with its strong finish, I think it might just be there in the top 3. So Spieth is my third placed horse. And then my roughies of the race for the TJ Smith Stakes, I've gone 2. I've gone number 8, Voodoo Lad. Came second in the Group 1 at Newmarket, as I said. I thought it performed really well. Has good heavy track form as well. So it's coming off some good form, some good recent form. I think this horse is riding it, and it is at odds that you might be able to get a bit of value out of. It's $17 odds, nearly at $20. So if this horse gets up, then you could get a bit of money back. So Voodoo Lad, my first roughie of the race. I've gone Rock Magic. This is a little bit of a risk, but I really rate this horse, Rock Magic. I think it will be there. It was in the finish Maybe went a little bit too late, but it was in the finish in the William Reid, where it came fourth in that race. It's had good form in its last 11 runs. Yeah, look, I think this horse is going to be right in the finish, and it's at about $41 odds. I think that's remarkable. The only query is that it has no heavy form. So, but I'm prepared to stick with it and prepared to give it a shot, and that's why it's one of my roughies of the race. So Voodoo Lad and Rock Magic, my two roughies of the race for the TJ Smith Stakes. Okay, time now to move on to the final Group 1 of the Saturday at Royal Randwick as part of day 1 of the championships. And this is the Group 1 the start Doncaster Mile over the 1600 metre journey. The race will start at 10 past 5 p.m. local time, that is Eastern time in Australia. This is a massive field of 23 horses. It is absolutely massive. It took me quite a long time to get through this field when I was studying it, but I managed to get through, and well, Lee Romain, in my opinion, is most certainly the well-deserved favourite at $6.05. Haraki, Palantino and Happy Clapper are all on $11. At $12 we have Redkirk Warrior, of course, surprised us in its last start. Spectroscope is at $13. At $14 I Am a Star, and $18 Hey Doc. Antonio Giuseppe is at $19, as well as Endless Drama. At $31 we have Ecuador. We then have $51 It's Somewhat. $61 New Tipperary, Dibiani's at $71, Sense of Occasion at $81, $91 Harrod, Tester Shadow at $151, Euro Angel $151 also, Sons of John is at $201, and then at $301 we have No Doubt, and then at $301 also is Top My List. Tosum Stardom is scratched from the race, but was priced at about $26 before being scratched. So that is the field. It's actually a 22 horse field now since the scratching of Tosum Stardom. So let's not muck around. Let's get straight into having a look at the field in depth. Number 1 is Horaki. This horse is a John O'Shea trained horse. James Doyle takes the ride. It's coming out of barrier 16. Fourth last start at Rose Hill in the G.O. Rider. Won the Epsom over this distance last prep. I think it might be set for this. Of course, we know in the Canterbury Stakes it ran, it came third. That was its resuming run this prep, and then it went on to come fourth, as I mentioned, the G.O. Rider. So I think it might be just kind of making itself set for this race. I think it could be a top 3 finisher in this race. Number 2 is Lee Romain. This horse is a Chris Lees trained horse. Huey Bowman comes aboard, and it's coming out of barrier 8. This horse has won its first 2 starts of the prep before being beaten by Winks last start. Won the Catella over this distance during the Melbourne Cup Carnival last prep, running very, very well lately. Definitely in this, probably the one to beat. Number 3 is Palantino. This horse is a Darren Weir trained horse. Mark Zara is aboard. It's coming out of barrier 3. Won the Group 2 Bellamy at Flemington in its last start. Beat a small field of 6 horses that day. So in fact it beat 5 other horses, 6 field including itself. Much tougher race, of course, this one. There's no question about that. I'm going to be a bit harsh because I know the money is coming for it, but I'm going to be a bit harsh and say that it really needs to improve for this race, because I don't think its recent form has been up to standard. Hasn't won a race for quite a while now, and this prep I don't think has been really up to its standard, especially and even the back end of its prep last prep. It kind of was dropping off a little bit and wasn't quite performing at what it can actually do. So Palantino needs to turn it up for this for this race, and no heavy form either, so that's a little bit of a query. Number 5 is Happy Clapper. This horse is a Patrick Webster trained horse. Blake Shinn is aboard. It's coming out of barrier 2. A bit of money coming for Happy Clapper. Finished in top 2 in its 2 starts this prep. One last start over the 1400 metres in Newcastle. Meets a much tougher race, with not great heavy form. It's fair to say that. Has won over the 1600 metre distance at Randwick before. I think it's a chance, considering the prep it's having so far. That's kind of what gives it a chance, is its prep at this present stage. Number 6 is It's Somewhat. This horse is a John O'Shea trained horse. Zach Purton is aboard. It's coming out of barrier 9. Won its last start over the 1500 metres at Rose Hill. Hasn't finished outside the top 6 since 2015, so that's a very, very good stat there. Steps up to a tougher race, but maybe a placing chance. If not, maybe a chance to slot into the top 6 at least. Number 7 is Ecuador. This horse is a Gay Waterhouse and Adrian Bott trained horse. It is coming out of barrier 14, and it's won its 2 starts this prep. 3rd in the Group 1 Or and Futurity after those 2 starts, and then 8th in the Australian Cup. Might do a bit better back in Sydney, but it doesn't have any heavy form. I did like this horse early on in its prep. Number 8 is a Rod. This horse is a Chris Waller trained horse. Glenn Schofield stays aboard and is coming out of barrier 7. Hasn't won a race since Ascot, July 2015 over the 1600 metres. I think this race will be too tough for this horse. But does like these longer trips though, so it maybe keeps it in the loop a little bit, but I'm going to say pass. Number 9 is Dibiani. This horse is a David B. Hayes and T. Dabinick trained horse. Barrier 21, which is quite a wide barrier. Damien Oliver takes the ride. Hasn't won since 2013. Maybe a placing chance. I'm going to go out and say that it could possibly place, but in saying that, I am prepared to pass myself. Number 10 is Redkirk Warrior. This horse is a David B. Hayes and T. Dabinick trained horse. It's coming out of barrier 15. Regan Bayliss stays aboard after what was a terrific win in the Group 1 Newmarket in its last start over the 1200 metres at Flemington. An absolute ripping, surprising win actually, because I don't think I even gave it a chance. No one really, or hardly anyone. Maybe there was some people that did give it a chance. Won at Sandown over the 1500 metres last prep, so it can win at this sort of distance. I do give it a chance. Number 11 is Macquarie. This horse came 2nd in the Catella last prep. Won first up and then 5th in the G.O. Rider. This is a Chris Waller trained horse. Kieran McAvoy stays aboard. It's coming out of barrier 17, and I reckon this horse might be a placing chance. You can't rule out. Number 12 is Endless Drama. This horse is a Chris Waller trained horse. Brendan Adela comes on, and it's coming out of barrier 20, which is a concerning wide barrier. This horse in its last 2 starts has come 3rd and 6th over the 1400, 1600 metre distance. The one that it ran 6 in was the 1600 metre Chipping Norton. It hasn't won since July last year. Can run well, possibly has place claims. Number 13, Sense of Occasion. This horse is at $71 odds, and Chris Lees is the trainer. Corey Brown takes the ride. It's coming out of barrier 10, resuming after a top 2 finish in 2 of its starts last prep. Had 1 win at Randwick over the 1600 metre distance. However, this is a much tougher race, although it has some claims, but at large odds. Number 14, I Am a Star. Shane Nichols is the trainer. It's coming out of barrier 1. Dean Yendall is the jockey. Won its last 2 races. Last start was a Group 2 win in the Sunline Stakes over the 1600 metre journey at Moonee Valley. Has never won on a heavy track. It runs well from barrier 1, and I think it's in with a shot. It did run quite well in its last race. Number 15, Hey Doc, won its last 2 races, won a Group 1 level. Of course, that was the Australian Guineas. We do know all about that over the 1600 metre journey. Is in impressive form. Of course, it is a 3-year-old horse, so it has to be able to take it up with the older horses in this race. has a wide barrier, however, barrier 19, so that is a little bit of a concern for me. Number 16, Antonio Giuseppe, a Chris Waller trained horse. It's coming out of barrier 6, and Tommy Berry comes on a nice fourth in the Group 1 Randwick. Comes down to 1600 from the 2000 metres, but I reckon it should do very well. It's proved that in its recent form. Has a good heavy form also, so I'll tell you what, this horse is right in the mix. Number 17, Sons of John, won at Randwick over the 1400 metres last prep. No luck in the Epsom, coming second last, 7th last start. This race, I reckon, will be too tough. Kathy O'Hara is the jockey, Jason Adtard the trainer. It's coming out of barrier 5. Number 18, Testa Shadow, a Gary Portelli trained horse. Caitlin Mallion is aboard as the jockey, and it's coming out of barrier 13. Third in the Ajax last start. Tops 6 finish in all of its starts this prep, but this race is definitely tougher. Number 19 is Spectroscope, one the Doncaster Prelude. It's a John O'Shea trained horse. Joey Moreira takes the ride. It's coming out of a very wide barrier, barrier 22. Like I said, won the Doncaster Prelude in its last race over the 1500 metre journey at Rose Hill, and is undefeated this prep so far. Hasn't finished outside the top 4, and it may be a shot in this. Has won on a heavy track before. I do give it a little bit of a chance, although that wide barrier quite wide. Number 20 is Euro Angel. This horse is a Michael Wayne and John Hawkes trained horse. It's coming out of barrier 11. Disappointing in its recent Group 1 runs in the Maya Classic and Coolmore. Yeah, I'm going to have to pass on this horse. I just don't think it can take it up to the other horses in this Group 1 race. Number 21, New Tipperary, a Joseph Pride trained horse. Jay Ford aboard as the jockey. Barrier 18, an emergency, although will probably come in now for Tosum Startum, who has been scratched. Second in the Ajax last start, has won at Randwick before. This is a step up in class though. Number 22, No Doubt, an Anthony and Edward Cummings trained horse, coming out of barrier 12, second in the Doncaster Prelude, hasn't won past the 1200 metre journey, however. Finally, number 23, another emergency. Of course, 22, No Doubt, was an emergency. This is another emergency. Number 23, top of my list. Anthony Edward Cummings trained horse, coming out of barrier 4. Doesn't really handle the heavy tracks. Is coming off a win over the 1900 metre journey. He's coming third over the 1900 metre journey at Rose Hill Gardens in its last start, with Regan Bayliss on board. Currently without a jockey. I think this is going to be a bit too tough. Doesn't handle the heavy grounds either, so it probably will be well back in the field. Okay, time now for my tips for the 2017 Doncaster Mile. I'm going to start with number 2, and that is Lee Romaine. I think this horse is going to win. It is in impressive form, and I just don't see how it's going to get beaten. So, of course, won its first 2 starts of this prep, and, well, was beaten by Winks, but did beat Chautauqua, and is a very, and of course won the Group 1 Contella last prep. So Lee Romaine is first for me. I'm going to go Haraki as second place. 4th last start. As I said before, I reckon it's been building up to this race, and I think it's set to have a very good run, and it's going to come second for me. So that is here. That is Haraki, second place. I've gone Redkirk Warrior as the 3rd place horse. This horse, of course, we know, won the Newmarket Handicap. Very surprising victory, and I think it could be up again here in the top 3. It won at Sandown over the 1500 metre journey. It is capable around this distance, so I'm going to put it in my trifecta, and I'm going to tip it as 3rd. And finally, my roughie of the race for the Doncaster Mile, and it is number 16, Antonio Giuseppe. This horse is in some very good form. Does step down from the 2,000 metres to the 1,600 metres, but that will be no trouble. Has good form in the wet. So, look, if you are looking for a horse that has a good heavy record, this might be the one. But not only that, it is a very fine runner when it comes to these sort of races, especially in Sydney. So, Antonio Giuseppe is my roughie of the race for the Doncaster Mile of 2017. And that concludes the 23rd episode of the Big Group 1 Racing Show for the racing season of 2016/17. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, if you didn't watch part 1 of episode 23, which include a preview of the Inglis and also the Australian Derby, then do go over to my YouTube channel and watch that. Of course, don't forget to like, comment, share this video, subscribe for all my other content. Of course, I will be presenting a new episode of the Big Group 1 Racing Show next Friday for day 2 of the championships, and every Group 1 race to come after that. So do subscribe. Hope you back a winner on Saturday at Royal Randwick. And until next week, I'm Jacob. Bye for now.